Dissolution by W. Michael Gear is a dystopian, apocalyptic slash post-apocalyptic book set in Wyoming, which is the reason I read it. The premise sounded just too crazy, too out there. I had to try it. It's by a Wyoming author as well, so I was very excited to read this book. Unfortunately, didn't really like it, and I'll get into why in a bit. But the premise, the story, this takes place, it was published in 2021, takes place in 2021, and it is very much set in the world at that time. So, COVID, just after the height of the pandemic. And the thing that incites the apocalypse is a financial crisis. The United States banks get hacked, and something like 10% of the accounts at banks in the U.S. are compromised. Their balances are unreliable. They hacked the digital banking system, and that puts a lot of distrust in the system. The government, shuts everything down. Other countries invade the U.S., leading people to believe that it was a foreign attack. War happens. People die. The government is, in this book, incredibly incompetent and also very much the bad guys, which is a very Wyoming idea for sure. And so they're not able to bring the country back from this. And since the American financial system is so integrated into the world's financial system, the entire world seems to go through the same stuff, although we don't really get a whole lot of details on that. So that's the inciting incident for the apocalypse. This book follows a group of archaeology or anthropology students from New York who are coming to Wyoming to conduct an excavation in the central part of the state near the Wind River Mountains and Absarokas. And they are out there in Wyoming, in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, when the apocalypse happens. And the whole point of this book is that Wyoming ends up being essentially untouched. And not only that, but it thrives in the apocalypse, which is why I had to read this. It sounded insane. The students in New York kind of get taken under the wing of some ranchers in the area who take care of them, make sure that they're alive, teach them how to survive, how to shoot guns and hunt and live in the wilderness and stuff like that. So yeah, I really liked that premise. It sounded bonkers. It sounded fun. And the plot overall, I enjoyed. I enjoyed where it goes. I just had a huge problem with the writing and the characters. It was just not an enjoyable reading experience, unfortunately. The writing style, I just have so many pet peeves with it. For one thing, it's pretty bland and basic, which is fine. If you've got a good story, if you've got a good characters, I don't really care too much about that. But the Gear does this thing where he'll write out dialogue, and then he'll end the dialogue in the middle, after a sentence, and then type or write out the words "a beat," and then continue the dialogue, which is just insane to me. Like, that's what periods are for. periods give you a beat while you're talking. I don't need to read the words a beat in order to pause while I am reading. And he does it so much. It probably happens like 50 times in this freaking book. So that was one pet peeve of mine. Another was with just with the characters. They didn't seem all that true to their backgrounds. There's a lot of tokenism going on in this book. So, everyone is defined by their cultural identity or racial identity, ethnic identity, religious identity, and that is the entire basis for their character. Absolutely nothing else. And it's not well done. It's like the main character, who we get most of the perspective from, is a Mexican from New York, and that's his whole deal. Is he's the child of Mexican immigrants who grew up on Long Island, and so that means, of course, that he is, like his whole character is just considered hardworking and a city boy who doesn't know jack about being in a place like this, right? And that's the entire character. So and every character is like that. I mean, one of the characters is Jewish and she's from New York, and the author says something when he introduces her character, says something along the lines of she doesn't hide the fact that she is a Jew. So it's somebody clearly written by somebody from Wyoming, which is to say somebody who has not had many diverse interactions with different people, or people different from themselves. So it really shows in the writing and the characterization. The characters I did like were the native Wyomingites. They were very well fleshed out, very unique and different from each other. There's a lot of them in this book. And they, they just have personalities that are more than just, whoa, I can't believe I'm out in the mountains in Wyoming and I have no idea what I'm going to do and I'm so scared. Like they actually have personality and agency within the story. And it's clear that the author knows a lot of people with that background and is able to draw on that. But yeah, that's my biggest gripe with the book, is the characters are so many of the characters are one-dimensional and so heavily based on things that do matter, that do shape people, but they aren't given much outside of that. They don't have distinct personalities. There's also a romance in this, which is like gross. Gross is a strong word. I just didn't care about it all that much. I mean, I get that the main character is a college student, but he's a graduate student, so he should be a little bit more mature, and he's definitely not. He definitely has the maturity of a high schooler when it comes to interactions with women and viewing women and stuff like that. Very strong male gaze, I guess you could say, in this novel. So, yeah, a lot of things really rubbed me the wrong way. But the novelty of it taking place in Wyoming was pretty cool. And while I thought it was really messed up, I thought it was kind of funny that Wyoming ended up violently, forcefully protecting its southern border with Colorado to keep all the people in Colorado out. That's a very Wyoming idea. People in Wyoming get frustrated with people from Colorado coming up here for recreation and stuff because it gets crowded in Colorado, so they come up to places just across the border to camp and hike and have fun and stuff, which brings money to the state. So I've never really understood the genuine complaints about that, but it is kind of fun to poke fun at Coloradans sometimes. But in this book, it's taken so seriously that it's like, okay, I don't like this very much. I don't like the fact that this book is so gung-ho about... That's one thing in this book, is they jump so quickly to violence against others. There is just zero time between, oh shit, things are going bad, to better start shooting people to protect my land and my property and my, freedom and all that. It's just insane to me. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people who would react that way in this situation, but I just don't understand that myself. And yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. Hey, Wesson, don't go too far. So about the leap to violence, the characters are constantly like talking about like how awful it is that they have to be shooting people, and I hope it doesn't come to that, or I hope I don't have to do it again, or stuff like that. But there's very little in the way of actual genuine emotion from the characters on that subject. Like, they, stuff happens, and then they just kind of immediately move on, business as usual, and they may internal monologue about like, wow, I can't believe that happened, that's so crazy. But ultimately, that's all we really get as far as the emotional impact of the things that happen in this story. So I guess overall, my biggest complaint with this, my biggest complaints are the characterization, the writing, and the fact that it takes itself way too seriously. This should have been like B-movie fun. That's kind of what I was hoping for. And instead, it feels very self-serious. It feels like Gear wanted to say something about society at this time. How divided we were during the pandemic, and with Trump and Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. And ultimately, it's just too goofy to be taken that seriously. So yeah, there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance there. But this is the first book in a trilogy, and honestly, I'm still thinking about continuing in the trilogy. I'm not in a rush to, but I'm thinking about it because the novelty of reading a story like this set in places that I am familiar with was enough to push me through and read the whole thing. And it might just be enough to push me through to read the whole series. So, yeah. Dissolution, W. Michael Gear. The Wyoming Chronicles is the name of the series. It's book 1. If you like this review, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. If you've read this book, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And subscribe for more, and I will see you next time.